for
Ja.
Is auch mal.
Neem something eerst op bladzij. Ja, dat is het.
Praise are you and our God, King of the universe, who gives the Torah of truth and the good news of salvation to his people Israel and to all the people through his Son, Yeshua, Messiah, our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Alright, okay. What was going on last week? Give me a recap. Where are we? That's not the cobwebs. Don't make me start doing speed. Yeah, okay. So, what was going on last week?
Jacob blessed his sons, blessed Manasseh and Ephraim, and did the whole, the whole firstborn thing.
Okay.
Which also, like you mentioned, was probably the way it should have happened with Jacob and Esau with the birthright.
Alright. Eat sweeties and then process them. Okay, what else?
Ja.
Guys.
When he
Right.
had a royal funeral,
Right.
they gave him both of them, Jacob and Joseph, both had
Okay, Jacob and Joseph. Alright, remember? We touched a little bit on Jewish perspective when we start talking about sitting Sheva. Do you remember what sitting Sheva is? Okay, when someone dies, you sit for 7 days. Okay? And you remember their life. Okay? Biblical and Jewish understanding is this. When you come into the world, you come in naked, you have contributed nothing here for you. You're a beautiful miracle. That's nice. And we will celebrate that for about 5 minutes. But we put more emphasis on your death because we look at the legacy of what you left behind. Okay? It's not a coincidence that the gospel writers all focus on the death and the crucifixion of Yeshua, and some of them focus on the birth. Okay? If it was that massive an event biblically, don't you think all of them should have focused on it? They don't. Okay? So when we're sitting here, or while we were counting, what are the major things you remember about Yaakov? What do you remember about Jacob? If you had to think of, off the top of your head, about the man, you're sitting Sheva now, what do you remember? What was his legacy?
He was faithful.
He was
He
faithful.
worked for Laban.
Place his trust on the Most High.
Placed his trust on God.
Even as a young man, though, being in the...
And it's Joseph. No dreams. That's Joseph. Jacob first. Jacob first. His daddy. Yeah.
Even as a young man dwelling in the tent, you know what I mean, being a man of like wanting to like learn and serve in and around, not going out, you know, into the fields and being the warrior, but learning, you know, being faithful in that way.
Right. Stayed helping him run the household, learned the stories at campfire moments. Remember, that's when you learn from Opa and Dad, and you learn all the testimonies that God has done. And this is very, very important for those that have been walking with God for a long time and those who are still sort of kick-starting into this. If you have a testimony, people need to hear it. Okay? These campfire moments get lost in our day and age. Because there's no... You have to write a book about the miracles that you received. And you read about other people's testimonies and things like that, but you never hear about the things that your father had to go through. You never hear about the things that your grandfather had to go through. You never, and again, this is in the case where both men are following God. Okay? We, sadly, in this day and age, we do not have the examples of people like Abraham, Isaac, so that Jacob could sit down at a campfire. When you do, when you see these mighty men of God, and remember, it might be a spiritual father, it might not necessarily be a physical one, when you sit down and you can listen and you say, okay, hit me, what did God do? What is God doing? What are you going through? And we learn about what their struggles are and how God provides, how God overcomes. And you start to see the hand of God becoming very alive. Okay, it's not just some idea out there. He's working, he's answering my Father's prayers in this house. Because he's praying that I have clothes. and he doesn't have money. So when I see clothes appear,
You think that?
and I see Daddy, stifling that tear, I understand. Baruch Hashem, blessed be His name. It's God who does this, not Dad. Okay? This is something you need to instill, something that we like to do when we go away for Sukkot. 1-5. What has God done for you? What is the massive thing that you've done, that He has done for you this year, this week? Okay? And we remember that also at Shabbat when we sat around the table last night. God has blessed you somehow this week. What has He done? And you'll be surprised at how emotional people get about something that really touched them. And it affects the people around the table. Okay? So these testimonies that you receive, these victories are not only to blow up your face, but they're for the next generation, the generation after that, and for the people around you. Okay? So, Jacob campfire, stayed home, took on the responsibilities of the firstborn while firstborn was running around doing his own thing. What else? Yeah, his name changed, right? What does Israel mean? Struggling with God. Okay? And that's like a whole wonderful testimony of this whole thing is that when we go through this process, when we go through this moment, a mighty man, someone of Jacob's caliber who is faithful, who learns, who goes through these things, also struggles with his understanding, struggles with his relationship, struggles with the loss of Joseph. And only later when he looks back on his life can he see how faithful God has been. I can see He protected him. And I mean, for those of you again who have been walking for a while, when you turn around and look back and you see when you were putting your hair out, panicking, you don't know which way was up, you saw that God was in the details and He was there the whole time. That's something we get to sit back and we get to look forward to. I always say to my guys, we always want to panel beat ourselves, right? We judge ourselves and we feel like we're not getting anywhere, we're not growing, we're not moving forward as fast as what we would like. But stop and take a look back. Every so often, where was I 2 weeks ago? Where was I a month ago? Where was I a year ago? Where was I 2 years ago? Where was I 3 years ago? If you see growth and you see the hand of God slowly but surely going, no, okay, you've learned enough here, okay, now we need to go here, oh, no, you saw that, no, I protected you from it, take a step back, no. And you see this continual motion where He's in the details trying to lead you. And that sometimes we obviously run into brick walls instead of listening to the voice. But you see God's hand the whole time through. Can you imagine looking back when He's blessing His sons, when He's looking at Joseph, when He's seeing Ephraim and Manasseh? Can you imagine him looking back and now all of a sudden he gives a testimony? What would his testimony be? There's a wonderful passage in one of the translations that I have called the Chumash. And remember he spoke about, he says, may the angel of God go before you. May He shepherd you like He shepherded me. May He, the one who provided for me, the one who protected me. And in this translation it goes further and he says, may these boys remember everything that I stand for, everything that my father has stood for. The way you live your life is the legacy that he was passing on. Remember what I stood for. And it starts to beg the question of my heart, will my kids remember what I stood for? In the midst of it all, that I scream, God is good. That I scream, He's real. That I scream, He died for me. Amen. Hopefully we will have this. Amen. Above it all, remember what I stood for. Remember what your grandfather stood for. This is about his legacy, God's story, and how we can be a part of that. That's your legacy. Okay? Very, very important. Joseph, what do you remember about Joseph?
He was arrogant youngster.
Right, okay, started off very, very, very arrogant. Yeah, it's not completed to bring down a couple of beds. Okay?
If we're at the same time, sometimes we just journey with the Lord,
Absolutely.
being arrogant again.
Yeah. Just he got his fancy coat and he ran around telling tales on people.
Just went back in, not really
take off your coat, sold into slavery, my boy. You're elevated, but you're going to be elevated because I'm going to elevate you, not because you're awesome. Goes up to Potiphar's house, pulls up everything. A little issue with his wife because Potiphar's wife thought he was very pretty. No. I'm in control of all of this house. It's only because of this and all the rest of it, and I'm just not allowed to have you. Tears off the coat, gets sold into slavery, goes into the prison. Okay? Time and time again, God teaching him, bringing him down. So when he elevates us, we elevate it in the right mindset. It's not about you. You're not earning that amount because you're that clever. You don't have what you have because you're a genius. It's not all about your hard work ethic. You have what you have because God saw fit. That you, the privileged few, He will make sure that by His love, He's giving you all of those things. You have roof over your head, you have blankets to snuggle up to, you have food in the fridge, you have family, you have God in your life. I promise you, you did not do anything different from the guy who's sitting struggling in the street. Okay? We all made bad choices. But by the grace of God, that's not me. He has a purpose and a plan for your life. He wants to teach you something so that you can reach others. He wants to use you. Okay? And this is one of the big things about Joseph, is that his plan for Joseph was so big, but he had to give him the right mindset. He had to give him the right understanding. So when he lifted himself up, he was not the savior of the world. The famine was so bad that people from all the world came to. Joseph was not the savior. God was. God was the provider of bread. God was the provider. He was the protector. He was in the details. When people thought to do harm, He made it for your good. Think about your life situations. We've all been through some sort of rough patch. We've all done stupid things. We've all sit in a situation. Look back. Those things that we thought were really horrible actually molded us, and God uses that horrible situation so that He can lift you up and get you to the right position. Okay? He was betrayed by those closest to him. His brothers turned around and sold him for money. God protected him from being killed. He could have curled up into a little ball and died. No more. I can't have this, God. It's finished, it's done. And God slowly thought, no, I'm here. I'm going to lift you up. This is how you act. This is what you're going to do. This is how things are going to go. And as I elevate you, his relationship became that much more real. He became real to God. God became very real to him. He was walking in a way that would please him. All because he was sold and betrayed. Okay? And remember, Joseph became very much a Messiah type, a foreshadow of what he was going to become. Someone who is to be elevated, was betrayed for silver, sold into bondage, so that he could be elevated up. He could set prisoners free. What else? What else did Joseph
Save the
do?
nation.
Save the nations. Okay, by doing what?
Through interpretations of dreams.
How did he physically save them?
He didn't physically say
Feeding them.
Well, they would come to Joseph and then he would give them something very simple. Food. The sugar is the bread of life. Okay? This Hebrew man is the reason you have food in your belly. This Hebrew people is the reason we have a Bible to read. Okay? Yeshua is the word in flesh. Okay? Time and time again, lifted up to the right hand of the most powerful person. Right? Each time telling you exactly how Messiah was going to come, and he was not only going to look after Israel, but he was going to save the entire world. For God so loved the world. But he's using a specific people for a specific purpose to reach out to the world. And this is what's going to lay the foundation for going into Exodus. Okay? Genesis was about, I created everything, I am the beginning, you've lost me, I save a remnant, I start again. You lose me again, I take and I start creating a nation. I use family members, and we go through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their trials, their victories, their tests, how God led them, how God called them, how God made covenants with them, covenants that we still cling to, covenants that the new covenant is echoed on, because we serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And as we go through this whole process, he starts and he changes shape here, because now he's not just focused on a singular person and how he's going to grow a family. He's going to focus on a singular person and how he's going to grow a nation. God's agenda starts to take a bigger form. Okay?
He picks one person out of the whole of Israel.
Yeah. And what I love about it is, it's again, he's qualified in a worldly sense, or the one with the most excuses. Alright? We're sitting here not because we're the most awesome, but because God loves you. He's put a call out and he said he wants you to follow him. Okay? And we're going to touch on that when we start talking about Moses and his excuses, but it carries on. Alright, let's get into this. Alright. For those who want to know the Hebrew, we're studying the portion that is called Shemot, which means names. Okay? Because it literally says the first line, and these are the names. Alright, so we know when we pull up a scroll and we see the word, and these are the names, we know we've gone into the story of Shemot. Okay, Exodus. Alright? Right. These are the names of the children of Israel who came from Egypt with Jacob. Each his household had come: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. And all the persons coming out of Jacob's thigh were 70 persons. Jacob's thigh? Did all the children come out of Jacob's thigh?
His loins.
His loins, okay? It's an idiom to mean his hand parts. Right. Now, when we read about the thigh in the Bible, just keep that in the back of your mind. Alright? So, his physical seed was 70 people. And remember, when we did the count previously, they actually listed 69 people. Alright? Verse before said, I myself will go down with you. God promised that he would descend into bondage with him. Again, a play on what Messiah does. Alright? When you go into bondage, he went before you. So the 70th person, according to one interpretation, was God himself. And Joseph and all his brothers and all of the generation died. So the sons of Israel, all of a sudden, the man Reuben disappears. Ephraim, Manasseh, Joseph, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Simeon, all of these men disappear, because now we start talking about tribes. Okay? And the children of Israel were fruitful and teemed and multiplied and became very, very powerful. And the land was filled with them. What does that remind you of? They were fruitful and they teemed and they were multiplied. Where in Scripture does that sound familiar?
Egypt.
Before. Joseph.
What else teemed and multiplied while God was creating? Everything. The birds of the air, the animals of the sea, okay? Fish in the sea, the animals on earth, everything teemed and multiplied. So what does that tell you? God is busy creating. They become powerful. And the land was filled. And a new king rose over Egypt, who did not know Joseph. Okay? Old pharaohs are gone. Different pharaoh comes in. Okay? And it did like a little funny, interesting count. In Torah, it talks about 5 different pharaohs. Alright? It's funny that we sit down and we look and we go, well, what was the pharaoh's name? Okay, Pharaoh is king. Just like Abimelech, it's just a title. Okay? And historians go back and forth and they go, oh yes, we believe this could be this king, well, this pharaoh. We believe it could be this pharaoh. It could be this because of different archaeological evidence. God omits his name. He's not concerned about who Pharaoh is. He's concerned about what he's creating. The children of Israel are listed by name, by family. What's more important to God? Big pyramids and a lot of slaves, or a testimony of who is real? This is God's story. The world and historians will go tell you about exactly which Pharaoh did what and how awesome he was. Guess what? What's like? Meh. There was a man called Pharaoh. All right? Different pharaohs. There was the Pharaoh with Sarah and Abraham. There was the Pharaoh who knew Joseph. This is the Pharaoh number 3 who did not know Joseph. Okay, I didn't want to for number 4. It later becomes the Pharaoh of the Exodus. So we're looking at different ideas. So just put it in the back of your mind again. Just because it says Pharaoh doesn't mean it's the same man. All right? So, he did not know Joseph. He said to his people, "Here the people of children of Israel are more numerous and powerful than we." That's a massive statement considering when you think back on this Egyptian identity. Come on, let's be wise toward it, or else it will increase, this nation, its people. And it will, when war will happen, that too will be added to our enemies and will war against us and go up from the land. So they set commanders of war companies over them in order to degrade it, the nation, with their burdens. And they built storage cities for Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramses. Funny. Their very fear was that they would turn against Egypt and leave. In a military battle maybe, that would destroy Egypt itself.
I don't know.
Okay. Because by holding on to them and trying to degrade them and bring them into subjugation, it brings about exactly that. When they leave, after God does all the wonders, or the plagues, it says they leave troop by troop, like a conquering army. God was the one who went to war, you have the victory. And this very fear is what leads to Egypt's destruction. Okay?
So they could obviously see that there was a little Jewish guy who was actually at the core of it all, and who actually controlled the whole world at that stage. So he obviously didn't want to have to rely on anybody else. He wanted to be independent.
It's possible. Maybe he did not want to remember Joseph, or the fact that he didn't understand the testimony of Joseph. Okay? It was in history, we rely too much on his people, we're a great nation. Okay? They built cities, Pithom and Ramses. Okay? We have archaeological evidence time and time again when we go and we look at areas in Egypt. Who built this nation? This fantastic, these pyramids, the Sphinx, these cities that people go in and they marvel over today still. He had lots of slaves. He had people that were extremely blessed in what they did. Even under bondage, they accomplished miraculous things. God was still with them. Okay?
But who owned all the land? Because obviously, by Joseph, by giving them all food and that, they sold their land to him for Pharaoh.
Yep.
So it was actually.
It was Pharaoh's land.
It was Pharaoh's land, but I mean, who owned it before they sold it to him?
The Egyptians. Yeah, there were many Egyptians that actually, that was their land and they had to sell it to keep alive. And then they would pay a portion, obviously. From then on, they would pay, I think it was a fifth of their crops. 20% would go straight to Pharaoh, so he would just get.
But had it not been
for that.
for Joseph,
You see, that's the funny thing. The plague of what would happen is God knew that when his people would leave. Because remember, he already prophesied that they would be in bondage for 400 years. He already told Abraham that this is what's going to happen. And after 400 years, when the wickedness of the Amorites will be complete, then he will bring them out. He knew what Egypt was going to do. And he already prepared the wealth of Egypt for his nation when they left. And we have two different plays on that, which we'll get to, but I'll mention two of these now. Is that one, he knew that they were unfairly, they were enslaved and they were never paid. So fair wages for 400 years is the wealth of the nation. It's like, I took your daily rate into account, don't worry my boy, your children will get it. Number one. Number two was, he needed to take care of the tabernacle and he wanted to establish them, and they needed to be elevated so they could give back. How do I do that? Well, I make Pharaoh really wealthy, so when they leave, they'll have all that they need. Okay? More than what they need, what they wanted. And then he always had to teach them, money's not everything. You can't drink it, you can't eat it. I'm your source. But he's, even from there, he's so busy planning ahead. 400 years down the line, he knows that they're going to have to walk out there. Okay? That's very cool. Sorry. They set up commanders of work companies over them to degrade it and it will become burden. They built storage cities, Pithom and Ramses. There's a very interesting idea that Pithom and Ramses were built kind of in marshy territories. Okay, so while they were building the cities, it wasn't just be built up, he tried to break them down, because just when you think you're finished, you'd have to patch it. And you'd have to build it up again, and you'd have to build it up again. So he would keep them continually busy so that they wouldn't get a sense of accomplishment. He was actually trying to break them down. Okay? They would degrade them, put them under his heel. And the more they degraded it, the more it increased, and the more it expanded. So the more man does to break you down, the more God brings forth blessing, and he goes, are you warring against me, or what do you think is going to happen? These are my people. Just like Joseph. When he got pushed down, he got elevated into statuses that he would never achieve in his own means. In his father's house, yes, he was really wealthy, but to be in charge of a royal household in the end of it, Potiphar was the executioner. He was part of the royal courts. Could a Hebrew man achieve that authority by himself? No. To become the right hand of Pharaoh himself? No. The more you push people down, the more God takes control. And he expands it. And they felt disgust at the children of Israel. We don't understand this. We're trying to break them, we're trying to ruin them, but they're just getting stronger. Excuse me. And Egypt made the children of Israel serve with harshness, bitterness. Okay? And they made their lives bitter with hard work, with mortar and with bricks, and with all the work in the field, all their work that they did for them with harshness. They're trying to break them down. Okay? And it's interesting that when they leave again, God takes them to a place called Marah. Remember the story of Marah? Okay? Bitter waters that they couldn't drink. He says, throw a stick in, and he makes the bitterness sweet. The crushing bitterness of their work, of their slavery, of their bondage. He remembers what they were done here, and he says, don't worry, time is coming when I will restore you. Sometimes when you're going through a wilderness moment, a tough time for God's plan and purpose, don't think that he's not paying attention to what the world is doing. He's providing, and he will restore when the time is right. Okay? The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name was, one of them was Sipra and the second was Puah, and he said, when you deliver the Hebrew woman, you look at the two stones. If it's a boy, kill him, and if it's a girl, she'll live. Right? Very interesting ideas here. Plan one is not working, so now we're going to just, they died in labor. Okay? Pharaoh is going so bad that he doesn't mind taking off a few innocents. Alright? When they look at the two stones, I mentioned this because I thought it was very funny. Some people believe, one interpretation is this, that there's two different types of birthing stools. Okay? The other interpretation is if when it talks about two stones, it's actually talking about testicles. Okay? So when you see it's a boy, you take care of it. Why didn't they want to kill the ladies as well? Why did they only want to kill the guys? Well, they wanted them still to be slaves. I don't think lust was the major issue. They were disgusted of them already.
Well, they would assimilate the women into the Mitzrayim, into Egypt.
I'm thinking more along the lines of underground. Okay? You can assimilate easier, because remember, women at that time didn't really have much authority, they didn't have much rights, they couldn't go and trade and all the rest of it. So if you bring them into an Egyptian household, and you procreate with them, all of a sudden their offspring is no longer Hebrew, it is now off and off. Where's your culture? Where's your heritage? Where do you come from? You're Egyptian now. And that assimilation process is going to be a lot easier when I don't have to deal with men. Okay? So he uses another thing and he's like, no, I'll take them in and then they'll belong to us and then we'll get rid of this whole identity and then they'll just be slaves because this is what we do. And the midwives feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had spoken to them. And they kept the boys alive. And the king of Egypt called the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this thing and kept the boys alive?" And the midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrews aren't like the Egyptian woman, because they're animals, because the midwife, before the midwife comes, to them they've given birth." Okay? Some translations will say they're lively, extremely strong. Okay? He's saying, before we even get there to deliver the baby, they've already given birth, so how can we say it's a stillborn? Okay? Won't work. I want you to understand this. These guys feared God so much that they would lie to Pharaoh. This is a man who's just ordered killing of little children. How much do you think he fears taking your life because you're lying to him? Who do you fear more, God or Pharaoh? They're literally putting their lives on the line to protect innocent. We kind of glance over this and we don't realize the risk they take. They are literally knocking on death's door. He has a royal executioner for people. This is a job description. I have people to kill you, and that's their profession. This is not just me exercising authority. This is who I am. And they feared God more. It tells you something about this woman. And God was good to the midwives, and the people increased, and they became very powerful. And it was because the midwives feared God, and He had made them households. He establishes their name. We can take a look and try and break down many different rabbinic interpretations about what that exactly means, and who exactly these women were. But one of the biggest things is you will never ever forget the names if you understand Torah and what these women did, even today. There were nobodies in no man's land for a bunch of slave nations. And God says, no, your name will be forever remembered because of your love for me. Okay? And Pharaoh commanded all of his people, saying, every son who is born, you shall throw him into the Nile, and every daughter you shall keep alive.
Can I just point something out? That's interesting, a modern parallel. Is Emperor Constantine actually did exactly what Pharaoh was trying to do, but he did it successfully. Because he got all the religions in the world at that particular time, and he amalgamated them into one religion called Christianity. And it actually included everything, pagan religion, Jewish religion, everything, except the Hebrews who kept themselves apart. But he tried to do exactly that. And today it's still operating.
The thing is,
interesting.
What they struggle to do is, how do I teach you what he did that to a point, and he was very, very clever, because you know what, if you're a Roman emperor and you believe that the Hebrews, these Jewish people, are nothing, and now I believe in the Jewish Messiah, we don't want to be like them, so we separate ourselves and we try and change certain things. But to make it more popular to the people around who are practicing pagan things, well, you can still keep this festival, or he sort of assimilates, like you said, he assimilates two festivals, or he makes his own one, and then he kind of justifies that so that it become more popular for the people. So you're not really leaving your roots, you're just kind of changing it slightly.
Yeah, but it's in other words, he created a parallel religion per se that actually ghosts
Tries to
the
assimilate
truth.
everybody.
Very interesting.
It is. Okay? Yeah, we also have a foreshadow of time. Who else likes to kill babies in Scripture? Herod. Alright? He has a problem. Alright? There are many different funny interpretations. Some will say, oh well, you know, Pharaoh received this premonition that as a savior is going to come, and now he's getting rid of them. He's getting rid of the babies to take care of that problem. I don't have any biblical evidence of that. That is a rabbinic understanding. I'm not saying it's correct. But his hate goes that far that he says, okay, we'll take care of ourselves. And what's the best way to do that? We'll sacrifice our children to the Nile. Their children. He will take these Hebrews and he will get rid of them, and the Nile, which is a god, will be elevated. God remembers this very horrible point. First plague. Nile into plague. Last plague. Death of the firstborn. Who is your God? I remember when you took my children and you put them in there, and I'll hold you accountable. Okay? So every time something horrific happens to God's people, He's there in the midst of it. And He will hold those people accountable for that very same thing. And the man of the house of Levi, and he took a daughter of Levi, and the woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And she saw him, and he was good. And she concealed him for 3 months. And she was not able to conceal him anymore. And she took an ark made of bulrushes for him, and smeared it with bitumen, with pitch, and put the boy in it, put him in reeds by the bank of the Nile. Again, who's the parents of Moses? Right now it's not important. They come from a direct descendant of the tribe of Levi. Okay? She takes him, she conceals him. Before I go there, she saw him and that he was good. Rabbinic interpretation, I think this is rubbish by the way, he was born circumcised. They believe Moses was so elevated, even from birth, that he was perfect in every way. Okay? Apparently there is a medical condition that this does happen, a medical phenomenon. I don't agree with what it's saying. Because that covenant sign is when parents obey and want the covenant, that is their responsibility to circumcise their son. I want you to have God. Okay? That is the essence of the whole thing. So you would literally take away from that.
The 3 months is important because it would have taken that long for him to be circumcised and healed and everything would be alright. It's safe for him to put into a basket. Yeah.
Why we say, when do we circumcise?
8th day.
On the 8th day. Okay? On the 8th day, according to scripture, you dedicate your circumcised your child to God. Alright? After 3 months, he starts getting a little bit boisterous, we can't exactly keep him hidden anymore. Remember, you're staying in a little room. These guys are all around. When they cry, people hear it. What am I going to do? Okay? I don't understand, and thank God I'm not in this position, but to go and say, alright, okay, I'll obey Pharaoh, I'll put him in the Nile, but I'm going to make him a life raft first. Okay? And what was meant to kill him actually floated him into salvation. Okay? There's a very interesting play with the whole dealing with the water, which we're going to touch on in a minute. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him, what's going to happen. And Pharaoh's daughter went down to bathe in the Nile. Why was she bathing in the Nile? There are no baths in Egypt.
Bless him. It was like the gods, wasn't it?
It's a god, and she go
It's
clean
a,
herself in the
it's a ritual worship of the god of the Nile. Okay, this is not me taking a bath. She is worshipping a fake god, and all of a sudden this child comes floating that was supposed to be sacrificed to this fake god. He gets elevated and lifted up right into her arms.
That's why she would have seen it as a sign, yeah, from the Nile giving her something.
Funny, you know.
Yeah.
God uses what even the pagans think is good understanding, He actually protects him. And Pharaoh's daughter went down to bathe in the Nile, and her girls were alongside the Nile, and she saw the ark among the reeds, and she sent her maid, and she looked at it. I love this. You saw the ark among the reeds. Moses among the reeds. The crossing, literally in Hebrew, is he crossed the sea of reeds. So this sort of parallel, where he will pass through water amongst the reeds, is already laying the foundation of what he's going to do many, many, many years down the line. These pictures seem to be recurring. And she opened it and she saw him, the child, and he was a boy crying. And she had compassion on him, and she said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. One, okay, we don't generally have Egyptians floating around the Nile. First thing. Second thing, if I look at him, what physical sign would I know for sure it's a Hebrew child? He's been snipped.
And he thought he had hair. He wasn't shaved.
I don't think they would have shaved their children from this sort of young age. I think it was more later when they became into men. Okay? And his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call a nursing woman from the Hebrews for you? and she'll nurse the child for you. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the girl went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child and nurse him for me, and I'll give you pay. And the woman nursed the boy and took the boy and nursed him. If this is not how God acts, this blows my mind. Can you imagine as a mother having to put your child in the Nile and you going, if she was a God-fearing woman, which I think she was, puts him down and says, Lord, protect him, keep him. You have Nile crocodiles, you have hippos, you have this rushing water. And he floats her exactly to this woman who obviously had a heart for children and was sitting over there. He protects him. He puts him into this thing and he says, Lord, maybe her faith saved him. And God honors that by saying, here we go, you can have him back for a couple of years. I'll come and fetch him when you're done nursing him. Remember, weaning in that time could go up to 7 years old. Okay? It was a massive party when the days were finished. Okay? He's strong enough, he can eat food. It's now we know he's going to make it. So at least, maybe for 5 years, she got her son back. When there was no way. She was just praying for his survival. And God goes, no. Take your boy home. And if anybody asks you why he's making a noise, tell them Pharaoh's daughter said, hey, this is my kid now, he's protected. You restore this child to her mother's arms. Can you imagine what that must have done for her?
But Pharaoh's daughter must have known that her father had said that the baby boys must have been killed.
This is
So what
again,
kind of a risk was she taking
But
about
she-
saving this Hebrew child? She knew. what
Could
she
it be?
did.
Could it also be because she gave the reasoning? Well, maybe the God of the Nile spared this child for a reason for our country.
it's possible. We don't exactly know the push and the pull. All we know is that she got it right.
Children never listen to their parents, so what's the problem?
Now crocodiles, okay. Right. Never mind the fact that Miriam, a common little slave girl, ran up to the princess of Egypt and went, oi, shall I go get your witness? Who are you to talk to me, excuse me? And it was just like, yeah, no problem. Mom, come with me, we've got a surprise for you. And the boy grew older, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of water. Okay? Now, funny enough, the word Moses is a Hebrew translation of an Egyptian name. Okay? So we continually sit down and we go, yes, this is Moshe. But his name was Monias. Or the word Moses or Moshe was actually an Egyptian word. And an Egyptian lady gives him the function of, because I drew him out, because I pulled him out of the water. And this is exactly what he's going to do. First, he's going to draw a nation out of Egypt. And he's going to draw them through water at the first crossing.
You must have got to the Red Sea and thought, oh, not again.
Looking for a basket.
Okay. Yeah.
But we have this man being, he's given a function. And this is also funny. Why don't we hear of Moses' name up until the time she names him, not his parents? So what did they call him? We don't know. But for like 5 years, he doesn't have a name. He doesn't walk in and she goes, oh, here we go. Nice princess of Egypt, this is my son Yaakov. She names him Monias, Moshe. She gives the function of who he's going to be. And he's going to draw the people out of the very establishment that she belongs to. These sort of nuances and plays that just seem to be happening. They seem to be happening. And there's also a funny thing I'm going to point out. This sort of story has captured ancient imagination. You'll hear about a guy, a Mesopotamian king. In Assyrian and Babylonian fables or storytelling, there was a Mesopotamian king by the name of Sargon. Okay? The story is kind of in reverse. A princess puts this boy as from a royal household, and then he gets floated down a river, and then he goes into a commoner's house, and then later he finds out he's royalty. and he gets elevated up and he becomes king. Okay? So people will, argue that this Moses' story is actually a story before that. It's not really the case. The whole essence of the story is wrong. If we look at it, it wasn't a royal kid being floated down the river, unless you look at it in a spiritual sense. God's saying, I'm going to take this commoner and I'm going to lift him up so that he will bring my children back into my household. And they will be elevated to royal priesthood. Okay? So this sort of idea has been so firmly planted that pagan identities, pagan religions have latched on, like the story of Noah. And they said, this is so fervent and part of our culture, there's only slight variances on how it happened. The Bible has been there long before. It was story passed down, passed down, passed down. And now we have hard copies. It has affected civilizations, time and time and time again.
Sorry, didn't the Kofanis also came from the Levi family?
Yes, yes they do.
So they're actually royal in this sort.
But they will only become priests later. At this point they were just kind of moaned at, because Simeon and Levi ran around circumcising and killing people. Right? Killing them while they were circumcised. Right, where am I? We grew older.
So I'm saying that we've got this thing at school where if a child takes, when you get colours, you're allowed to get a blazer.
Yeah.
And when it's got, it kind of elevates you. And if I have a blazer and you put my blazer on, then I will lose my blazer because I'm not allowed to give it to someone who didn't achieve that colours. So I see that kind of, I know it's like totally different, but when you circumcise people who didn't really want the Son of God, they kind of did it for different reasons. It was okay to do them because, I don't know, you see what I'm saying?
Half an hour. We can discuss that point later. Right. And it was in those days that Moses grew older and he went out to his brothers and saw their burdens. How did he know that he was a Hebrew?
He was taught in the first while he was being weaned.
The foundation he was given in God and who his family was laid in those times of healing. Because of your faith that I will protect your child, I will return him to you. You have a responsibility. Help this kid understand exactly where he is and who he comes from, so when he gets elevated up, he doesn't forget. Okay? Notice the whole time, in the beginning it was children of Israel, and now it's Hebrew, 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 Hebrew. What does the word Hebrew mean?
It means to, same story with Abraham.
Crossover.
It actually means to cross over.
Crossover.
Okay? Someone who is part of the world. The Hebrews need to cross over from Egypt, from slavery into freedom. Okay? Moses grew older and he went out to his brothers and saw their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian man striking a Hebrew man, one of his brothers. And he turned this way and that way and saw that there was no man, and he struck the Egyptian and hit him in the sand. I have been saved for a reason. How many children died? Why am I being saved? Well, my boy, God has big plans for you. This is what you're going to need to do. We believe that you are going to help this people because God promised Abraham many, many moons ago, and the time is coming where we're going to get ready to leave.
But when was it taught you?
Probably when he was being weaned. Remember, it could be 5 or up to 7 years.
Do you remember that type of stuff?
Thick foundation.
Yeah.
Thick foundation.
Yeah.
Don't think for a second that your kids are not watching. Because what do we do before we go to bed? We pray, and they remember that, and it's ingrained in them.
Yeah.
To the point that these little Bible stories, they start to share without even being asked. That foundation is so solidly laid, and remember when you go there, you do not belong to them, but you belong to these people. And the idea is that what happened in Moses' head, that he was sitting there going, he's abusing a slave. He's a prince of Egypt now. What does he care? Okay? He could be, oh well, I could be a slave, or I could be me. Me. So we have a couple of different schools of thought. On the one hand, maybe he really didn't like injustice. Maybe he was a very just guy. He didn't like when you were beating other people and slavery was a bad thing, so he just thought, instead of using his authorities and the power and trying to and say, wait, I'm the prince of Egypt, stop beating that man. He goes, okay, I'll deal with this myself. You will not touch my brother. No one's looking. And he tries to see, he looks right and then he looks left. There's no man around. He hits him and he buries him in the sand. It's very funny. From Adam to Adamah. Okay? A man into the sand. That's where he came from. And now you sit there, you got this whole thing, and either he was a thick foundation, you were protected for a reason, God has great plans for you, or he didn't like injustice. I point more to the one side, because for me to go that far to kill someone to protect my brother who was in bondage, who was a slave, you must have pretty serious emotions, pretty serious convictions to think that that's okay. Egyptian mindset. Okay? And he went out on the